Now it's time for our next debate. Up next, it's Benjamin. And Benjamin's going to tell us why he hates old people again. Benjamin.
Well, the impartiality shines through, Darren. Rishi Sunak is reportedly considering scrapping or cutting the inheritance tax paid when it comes to his budget in March. Now, inheritance tax is paid at 40% over £500,000, or if you're a couple, over £1 million for those people inheriting. Polls show that most people think they will pay inheritance tax and most people dislike inheritance tax. But the truth is that only 4% of estates actually pay it. And the vast majority of the £7 billion raised from inheritance tax is from the 1% wealthiest people in British society. So this would be a huge tax cut for the very wealthiest families in Britain. If that's going to be one of the last things that the Tories do before they kicked out, then doesn't that tell you a lot about their priorities? I mean, look, we've got the highest tax burden that there has been in 70 years in Britain. My God, when Rishi Sunak finds out who did that, he's going to be furious. And that's why I think it would be so appalling for one of, frankly, his last acts of Prime Minister to cut inheritance tax. Because when workers are paying so much of their income in tax thresholds, the idea that he would give a payout to multi-millionaires and billionaires would be an ugly insult. And let's remember, the only reason Sunak's in Downing Street is because a lot of voters in places like the North East turned Tory for Boris Johnson's version. Now, how many people in the North East are going to benefit from a tax cut for people leaving more than £1 million behind? Not many. That's why Sunak should not drop inheritance tax. Now, Albie, what do you make of this?
So I'm in two minds on inheritance tax. I think on the one hand, it is double taxation. We're taxed throughout our entire lives. We're taxed on all the different things that we buy, and then we're taxed in death as well. But then, on the other hand, it is a tax on people who have passed away. And actually, would I rather there were other taxes which were cut that working people were paying, perhaps income tax, for example, could VAT come down if inheritance tax was higher? So I'm in two minds on this issue. I can certainly see why people are pro-axing inheritance tax, but I can understand why people are pro-keeping inheritance tax.
Dan, having sold all those knives, you're worth millions now.
I am, yes. You know it, yeah.
People just tuning in on our
Yes, I was an in-store demonstrator. It was a very sad time in my life.
Do you have to do a demonstration?
Do you think it's fundamentally unfair that there is this, what some people would call a second tax on your way out?
I think it's disgraceful. These people have paid tax. It's the principle of it, right? It's not so much that, oh, only a certain percentage will pay it. And by the way, most rich people know how to get out of it. So most rich people who are incredibly rich will have worked a way of giving their assets around so they don't have to pay it. That's the first thing. But
like the Duke of Westminster.
Yeah, but secondly, most people, I don't like the principle of it. The fact that you have worked really, really hard, you're trying to pass something on to your kids, that you might say that it was somebody who's dead. But in my head, I'm thinking, well, what's the point of me working really hard, getting all my assets, if they're simply just going to be taxed to death, literally? And also, when they are taking these assets, the whole sort of probate system is terrible as well, because people wait months and months and months, then have to pay tax on the money or whatever it is that they're going to get. I think it's abhorrent.
The point of working hard to make money is that you get to live in a nice house and have a nice lifestyle.
And pass it on to your children.
And you can give your kids all the advantages they need when you're around. If you still haven't helped them by that point, why is it that they should inherit a posh house and kids that aren't lucky enough to have rich parents?
Because I paid for it.
They didn't pay for it.
Yeah, but I paid for it and I bought it for them. So why should I be taxed?
Benjamin, can I just say something? People who work hard and graft and succeed and very, rarely become multi-millionaires and even billionaires, they do that for their children.
Exactly.
On the whole, they do that because they want to leave a legacy and something for their children to remember them by. Not they don't want to just leave this earth, being a kind of nobody, and that's why they graft so hard for their kids. The inheritance tax is one of the most disgusting taxes going. It's legalised theft, and the government's no better than a suited-up mafia getting their grubby mitts on people's estates.
Is it the right priority for now, Ben Leo, when the tax burden is at a 70-year high? We've got all these people on frozen income tax thresholds. To be cutting tax for people that it's not really, it's going to affect, 4% of the population? Surely it's better to reduce income tax for millions of working people across the country.
I agree. We've reduced taxes across the board. As Benjamin said, a tax burden of a 70, 80-year high. totally not representative of a Conservative government at all. So, yeah, reduce income tax, scrap inheritance tax, scrap the lot. Tax is legalised theft.
They don't even make that much money out of it anyway, so they must get rid of it. As you said, only 4%.
You know, Ben's made his views clear, but you know what? I think the one sympathy I have with inheritance tax is that I think it really disproportionately affects people who live in the southeast and London, because their houses are just inevitably have gone up far faster. Darren, you're from the northeast. What do you make of it?
Well, I actually think that you have a really vindictive streak when it comes to old people. I think you've got a real problem with older people. I really, really do. I cannot for the life of me understand why you don't look at the struggle that people went through in the 1970s.
What, to have £1 million house?
Inflation
Yes, people
sky
work
high.
hard.
They worked hard, and during the 3-day working week in this country, thanks to your lot that are going to get in again.
Tell me, how many people in your town you grew up in would benefit from this?
Well, I have no idea.
Come on,
how many do you think?
How does he know that? That's a silly question.
No, it's not a silly question, because the answer is clearly going to be about zero.
You don't know that,
because
though. Where are you getting your stats
How many
from?
millionaires are in County Durham?
You don't-
And no, I'm sorry, but you've just insulted the people of your hometown so much, because you're saying that people who worked hard are going to pass it on. I tell you what, I think people in the north, where their houses haven't gone up to these crazy prices like London, they worked hard.
They have increased at the same rate.
They have, though. Some of them are actually... Some of them are falling...
grand.
Yeah, but some of them are falling into
the percentage increase has gone up probably even more than the south. They may have started at a lower base.
with the principle.
People in the
I agree with
northeast work just as hard as Londoners, but they won't get the benefit of this tax break. Just the super
work
wealthy
even
will.
harder because they don't have the connections that people.
Oh, there you go.
Get down to
There
London.
you
Well, then
go.
they get a
you
benefit.
do yourself as the flagship, the poster boy for little northeasterners, and you just said it. You don't think they work hard enough. The fact their house happens to be worth 200 grand doesn't make
The
them as hard
northeast
working.
works harder, I said.
Yeah.
Because
Honestly.
they don't have the connections that London has.
But then surely this would be the wrong tax cut because it wouldn't impact most people.
I do agree with that. So I'm in a sort of halfway house here between Albie and Benjamin. But I think
place
that
to be.
actually...
Can I make one more very brief final point?
You can't, I'm afraid,
Right.
because
no points.
you are...
Because we don't
I've been
want to hear it.
censored.